Hey guys, welcome back to the Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is Prorevenge Story. In 2018, my wife and I moved into an 1,100 square foot condominium with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. We were lucky to get this condominium as second owners, paying only $214,000, which was just $6,000 more than the original price. Our condo was on the 3rd floor, and every room was carpeted except for a small 4x4 square of vinyl flooring inside the front door to the outside breezeway. Yes, even the bathrooms, kitchen, and dining room were carpeted, which seems crazy now. The front door opened to a spacious area with vaulted ceilings. The living room to the left, dining room and kitchen to the right. The kitchen was separated from the living room by a wall with a cutout above the sink, and a long hallway led from the living room to all the bedrooms. We quickly got to know our neighbors and had good relationships with most of them. The couple directly below us, Tom and Sarah, were university students who were friendly and easy to get along with. After they graduated, they rented their condo to Sarah's brother Mike and his college friends. Mike was decent enough, though we had one incident during his birthday when their celebration kept us up until 4:30 a.m. "Hey, sorry about last night," Mike said when we ran into him in the parking lot a few days later. "The party got a bit out of hand." "No worries," I replied with a grin. Though you might have noticed our impromptu 8 a.m. concert the next morning. We all laughed about it, and that was the end of any issues with them. Between 2020 and 2021, we replaced all the flooring in the kitchen and dining room with ceramic tile, including the entry area. This was mainly to avoid constant carpet cleaning due to our young daughter's enthusiastic food-throwing phase. In 2022, Mike and his friends moved out, and the condo was sold to a newlywed couple in their early 30s, Rebecca and David Thompson. Anyone who's lived between 1st and 3rd floor condos knows it's the worst position if you're seeking silence. With kids or music, some noise inevitably filters through the floors and ceilings. I was unaware of the new neighbors until one evening around 6 p.m. when I set up my new powered subwoofer for the home theater system. I put on the latest Marvel movie to test it out, and after a couple of explosive scenes, the doorbell rang. Before I could even get up, it rang again. Opening the door, I found Rebecca standing there, visibly agitated. "Hi, I'm Rebecca from downstairs," she said, her voice tight with annoyance. "My husband and I are trying to have a quiet dinner. Could you please turn down whatever you're watching? We can hear everything." "Oh, sure, sorry about that," I replied, trying to be neighborly. I reduced the subwoofer volume and main volume slightly, but apparently not enough. The doorbell rang again, followed by aggressive knocking. "We can still hear everything," Rebecca exclaimed when I opened the door. "You need to turn it down now." "You say you can hear everything?" I asked. "What was the last line of dialogue you heard?" "I don't know. I just know you're watching that new Batman movie." "Actually, I'm watching the new Thor movie, and here were the last 3 lines." I corrected her, reciting them exactly. Rebecca's face turned red. "I don't care what movie it is. It's too loud." "The noise ordinance actually states I don't have to turn it down until 10 p.m., I informed her. "Fine. I guess David and I will have to go out to eat to get some peace and quiet." "Have a good evening," I called after her retreating form. At the next HOA meeting, Rebecca stood up and launched into a lengthy complaint. "The noise is unbearable," she declared. "Their kids are constantly jumping on the carpeted floors, there's a crying baby, and don't get me started about their TV volume, and those Martinez family gatherings on the 1st floor with their loud music every Saturday morning. We can't even sleep in." This continued for 6 months. Every single meeting, the HOA board gave the same response. "If it's between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m., we can't intervene. Outside those hours, you can contact the police." They'd then mail out notices about being considerate neighbors and citing the city noise ordinance. Rebecca would inevitably show up at our door within days of each notice, sometimes even taping copies to our door. We later discovered they attended our church and were supposed to be our monthly visitors, though they never actually visited. After about 7 months of constant complaints, including 2 visits from apologetic police officers who confirmed they couldn't hear anything unusual from our door, we decided to upgrade our flooring. We knew this would irritate Rebecca, but we were past caring. Our renovation plan included extending the entry tile down the hallway to the master bedroom, tiling both bathrooms, and installing light coffee-colored bamboo hardwood in the living room. The demolition began on a Saturday around noon. As I was removing the last carpet tacks, there came the inevitable knock. "What is it now?" I asked, opening the door. Rebecca stood there, arms crossed. "I'm hosting a cookware party downstairs. Could you keep the noise down?" "Of course," I said with a forced smile. I finished the necessary nail work, then deliberately made more noise than needed for the next hour. I also turned on my stereo to a rock station, while the Martinez family's weekend cleaning ritual downstairs was already in full swing with their usual festive music. The floor installation took several days, featuring the rhythmic bang, bang, bang of the floor nailer. My wife Lisa, who suddenly developed an interest in wearing high heels around the house, tested the acoustics frequently. "These new shoes sound amazing on the hardwood," she'd exclaim, clicking across the floor. Our daughter Emily was equally enthusiastic about her tap dancing practice on the new tiles. The renovation transformed our condo, and we sold it within a month for $360,000. Perfect timing before the market downturn of 2023. The real estate agent told us the floors were the main selling point. A few months later, our old neighbors informed us that Rebecca and David had sold their condo at an $8,000 loss. They'd submitted a formal complaint to the HOA claiming the noise from our premium floors made their unit uninhabitable. The next one is an entitled people story I never wanted to live near other people. That might sound harsh, but after spending most of my life in cramped apartments with paper-thin walls and neighbors who thought 3 a.m. was the perfect time to practice their drum solos, I'd had enough. 5 years ago, I bought a small piece of land about 20 minutes outside of town. Nothing fancy, just 2 acres with trees along the back and enough space to set up my mobile home. And not one of those old rusted trailers people imagine, but a nice manufactured home with all the modern amenities. It cost me a pretty penny, but it was worth every cent for the peace and quiet. For the first 3 years, life was perfect. I had my garden, my dogs could run freely, and the nearest neighbor was far enough away that we'd wave if we happened to see each other, but that was about it. Then about 2 years ago, some developer bought the large parcel of land adjacent to mine and started building cookie-cutter houses. Within months, my peaceful countryside turned into a bustling suburb. I wasn't happy about it, but what could I do? I still had my property, and as long as they stayed on their side of the property line, we'd be fine. Then came the HOA. I first heard about it when a woman knocked on my door one afternoon. She was dressed like she was heading to a business meeting, complete with a blazer and a clipboard. "Hello there, I'm Barbara Mitchell, president of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association," she announced with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm here to welcome you to our community." I stared at her for a moment. "I'm not part of your community. My property predates your development." Her smile faltered slightly. "Well, technically all properties in this area now fall under our jurisdiction. We've established boundaries that include your dwelling." She glanced past me at my home with barely concealed disdain. "No, that's not how it works," I said firmly. "I bought this land years before your development existed. I'm not part of your HOA, and I have no intention of joining." Barbara's face hardened. "I understand you might feel that way, but manufactured homes aren't permitted in our community guidelines. They bring down property values. We'll need to discuss a timeline for you to replace it with a permanent structure." I almost laughed. "There's nothing to discuss. This is my property. Your HOA has no authority here. Have a nice day." I closed the door before she could respond. I thought that would be the end of it, but Barbara wasn't one to give up easily. Over the next few months, I received a barrage of letters claiming I was in violation of various HOA rules, from the height of my grass to the color of my curtains. I tossed them all in the trash. Then came the fines. Envelopes demanding payment for these supposed violations. I ignored those too. What could they do? I wasn't a member of their HOA. Things escalated when Barbara started showing up with other HOA board members standing at the edge of my property and taking photos. Once I caught them measuring the distance from my home to the property line. When I confronted them, Barbara smiled that fake smile again. "Just making sure everything is up to code," she said sweetly. "We wouldn't want the county to find any violations, would we?" It was a threat, plain and simple. I installed security cameras after that. Nothing fancy, just enough to cover my property line and the approaches to my home. I also went to the county clerk's office and got copies of all my property documents just to be safe. Last month, I had to travel out of state for my brother's wedding. I'd be gone for a week. And while I was a bit nervous about leaving my place unattended, my neighbor from down the road, not part of the development, promised to keep an eye on things and feed my dogs. The wedding was great, and I was in a good mood when I landed back home. That mood evaporated when I pulled up to my property. My mobile home was gone, completely gone, like it had never existed. In its place was just an empty patch of dirt. I sat in my truck, stunned, trying to process what I was seeing. My first thought was that I'd somehow driven to the wrong property, but no. There was my mailbox, my garden, even the bird feeder I'd hung from the oak tree. Everything was there except my home. I called the police immediately. While waiting for them to arrive, I called my neighbor Ted. "Oh, thank God you called," he said when he answered. "I've been trying to reach you for days. They came with trucks and just took it." "Who took it?" I demanded, though I already knew. "That HOA lady and some guys with a moving company. They had papers, said they were authorized to repossess the property due to unpaid fees. I tried to stop them, but they threatened to call the cops on me for interfering. I was seething. Where are my dogs?" "I've got them. They're safe," Ted assured me. "But all your stuff, they just packed it up and took it. Said you could claim it at their office." The police arrived 20 minutes later. I explained the situation, showed them my property deeds and proof that I was the legal owner of both the land and the mobile home. The officer looked genuinely shocked. "So they just took your house while you were away?" "Yes," I said, "and I want to press charges. Theft, breaking and entering, trespassing, whatever you can throw at them." The officer took my statement and promised to investigate. He seemed sympathetic, but I could tell he wasn't sure how to handle this situation. It wasn't exactly a typical theft case. I spent that night at Ted's place, and first thing the next morning, I headed to the HOA office, a small building near the entrance to the development. Barbara was there, looking completely unfazed when I walked in. "Ah, Mr. Reynolds, I was wondering when you'd show up. Your belongings are in storage. Once you've paid your outstanding fines, you can claim them." I had to take a deep breath to keep from shouting. "Where is my home?" She shuffled some papers on her desk. "The unauthorized structure has been removed from the community, as per our guidelines. If you'd like to build a proper home that complies with our standards, we'd be happy to expedite the approval process." "You stole my house," I said slowly. "My entire house. That's a felony." Barbara sighed like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "We didn't steal anything. We enforced our community guidelines after multiple warnings and notices. You refused to comply or pay your fines, so we took action as permitted by our bylaws." "I'm not a member of your HOA," I reminded her. "Your bylaws don't apply to me or my property." She slid a document across the desk. "Actually, your property falls within our jurisdiction. It's all here in the official boundaries registered with the county." I picked up the document. It showed a map of the development with boundaries that indeed included my property. But I knew this was wrong. My property had never been part of any development plan. "This is forged," I said flatly. Barbara's smile tightened. "That's a serious accusation. I suggest you speak with our attorney if you have concerns." She wrote a name and number on a sticky note and handed it to me. "Now, about your outstanding fines." I left without another word, went straight to my truck, and called the police officer who had taken my report. I explained what had happened and asked for an update. "I was just about to call you," he said. "I spoke with the county clerk this morning. Your property is definitely not part of that HOA jurisdiction. Their boundary document appears to have been altered recently. We're looking into who submitted the change and when." I felt a wave of vindication. "So they had no right to take my home?" "None whatsoever," the officer confirmed. "I've spoken with my sergeant, and we're treating this as grand theft. We'll be visiting the HOA office today." I decided to hire a lawyer anyway. My buddy Mark specialized in property law, and when I called him and explained the situation, he was practically salivating. "I don't even have words," he said. "They stole your house, your actual house, and they documented their crime by filing fraudulent papers with the county. This might be the easiest case I've ever taken." Mark helped me file for an emergency injunction requiring the immediate return of my mobile home to my property. He also filed a lawsuit against both the HOA as an entity and Barbara personally for theft, fraud, filing false documents, and a host of other charges I can't even remember. The judge granted the injunction within 24 hours. Barbara and the HOA were ordered to return my home exactly as it was, at their expense, within 3 days. When the police showed up at the HOA office with the court order, Barbara finally realized the gravity of the situation. According to the officer who called to update me, she tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she genuinely believed my property was part of the HOA. "But here's the kicker," the officer told me. "When we asked where your home was, she couldn't tell us. Said the moving company had taken it to storage, but she didn't know where. We're tracking down the company now." It took 5 days to locate my mobile home. It was in a storage facility 2 counties over, still on the moving truck because the facility couldn't figure out how to unload and store an entire house. The moving company claimed they were just following orders and had been told this was a legal repossession. They produced paperwork signed by Barbara stating exactly that. When my home was finally returned to my property, I discovered that significant damage had occurred during the move. Windows were broken, fixtures had come loose, and there was water damage from a pipe that had disconnected. The movers had been careless, probably because they thought they were moving an abandoned structure that no one cared about. The criminal case against Barbara moved quickly. The forged boundary documents were the smoking gun. She had personally submitted them to the county just 2 weeks before taking my home. The moving company provided copies of all their paperwork, including forms where Barbara had falsely claimed to be the legal property owner authorized to remove the structure. Barbara was charged with grand theft, forgery, filing false documents, criminal impersonation, and criminal mischief. She ended up taking a plea deal that included restitution, a hefty fine, and 2 years of probation. My civil lawsuit took longer but was worth the wait. The judge was clearly appalled by the HOA actions and Barbara's abuse of power. The final judgment awarded me $150,000 for damages to my home, loss of use, emotional distress, and punitive damages. The HOA was also ordered to publicly acknowledge that my property was not and had never been part of their jurisdiction. The best part? After the scandal broke, many homeowners in the development started questioning what else the HOA board had been doing. An audit revealed that Barbara had been misusing HOA funds for years. The entire board was voted out, and the new board's first action was to formally redraw their boundaries to explicitly exclude my property. I used part of the settlement money to build a fence around my entire property, a nice tall one with a locked gate. I also installed better security cameras and a large sign at the entrance that reads, "Private property, not part of any HOA." Barbara moved away shortly after everything settled. I heard she tried to join the board of another HOA in a neighboring town, but a quick Google search of her name now brings up news articles about the woman who stole a house, so that didn't work out for her. As for me, I've made some improvements to my mobile home and plan to stay right where I am. The new HOA board keeps their distance, and my dogs are happy to have their yard back. Sometimes I think about moving somewhere even more remote, but there's something satisfying about staying put, a daily reminder that not even the most determined HOA Karen could force me out of my home. The next one is a malicious compliance story. My mother was a truly inspiring woman. Her favorite phrase was, "Why say bleed when you can say hemorrhage?" because she never did anything halfway when she knew she could go all the way. We couldn't even ask for help with homework because you'd be up till 3 a.m. on a school night, adding one more thing. Then you'd go to school with this magnum opus while everyone around you phoned it in and still got an A. She would rarely get angry, but if you activated her righteous indignation, the repercussions would be legendary. There was one such story of malicious compliance that she always loved to tell, and I just found the receipts, so I wanted to share it with everyone. It all started one day when I found a dagger in my brother's room. It was an ornate sort of fantasy-style dagger. Not something you would find just anywhere, and it was very sharp. We were not old enough to have something like that at the time. He was only 11. Immediately, my mother walked up behind me and caught me red-handed. So I did what any self-respecting little brother would do and threw him under the bus. My brother wasn't at home at the time, so she went through everything and found more of these knives. She laid them out on the table, and she was psyching herself up for the hell she was going to bring down upon him. By the time my brother gets home, he walks in and sees her sitting there with the knives out. He goes white as a sheet. She immediately asks where he got them. This was the late 90s, and my brother was pretty into Magic: The Gathering. The card shop he went to for his fix was just down the street. He spent a great deal of time there and bought boxes and boxes of these cards from them, so they knew him and knew he was too young. They had sold it to him, knowing full well that he was underage, no questions asked. My mother's jaw dropped, and moments later we were pulling up to the place. She drags my brother into the store and puts the knives down in front of the woman who owns the place. She tells her that they had sold it to him. Yeah, so what? He is not 18, and he shouldn't have access to these. You need to tell your employees to check IDs before they sell weapons to minors. She was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt before she snapped back with, "It's a joke, it's humor, don't you get it?" Ah, so the problem is you. I am his mother, and I don't think it is funny. If you won't follow the law at the very least, I need you to stop selling weapons to my son. I'll do whatever I want. If you don't like it, tell the news. Surely this woman doesn't know who she is talking to, or the lengths that my mom was willing to go for her kids. I don't know why on earth that would be the phrase you'd use. Now you are just asking for it. Mom gives her one last chance before the hammer drops. So you are saying that even without my permission, having asked you not to personally, and knowing it is illegal, you would still sell a knife to him? Of course, this is a business. Maybe raise him better if you don't like what he's doing. It was like the air left the room. There were 3 of us boys in elementary, middle school, and high school around the time. She was president of all 3 PTAs for 3 different schools, miles apart from each other. She was practically momming as a sport and crushing it by every conceivable standard. This woman had just slighted her to her core and now had to deal with the consequences of her ignorance. My mom didn't say another word. She gathered the knives and we walked out. Even the woman behind the desk looked a little shocked that she was just walking out. So was I. We all went back to the car and no one said a word. Then you could almost visibly see the resolve set in and she says, "I guess we are going to the news then." I don't remember her saying another word the rest of the night. The next day, I woke up and she had papers all around her that she had downloaded and printed off and highlighted. She was on the phone explaining the story to a news station who'd just opened and responding to emails she'd sent overnight. I don't think she slept. She had been up researching the laws and building her case. The first reporters she talked to didn't seem to see what she saw in the story and told her they wouldn't pick it up. Every time she was told no, she would ask for references to someone who would do something like this. It took weeks of phone tag. She called the next reporter, then another, leaving messages and following up. Finally, she found an investigative reporter who would work with her. They decided that the best course of action was to put a hidden camera on my brother to send him undercover to buy something larger. Believe me, I am well aware of how outlandish that sounds. They met up down the street and gave my brother some money to buy the biggest weapon he could get. I seem to remember it being $120. Wired him up with a microphone and a spy camera they'd bought at a Radio Shack, and he went in and he bought a legit full sword from the place. They jokingly told him not to kill anyone with it as he was walking out and never asked to see an ID. Afterwards, the reporter interviewed the store owner, who stuck with her old fallback of it being funny to sell deadly weapons to kids. Then they interviewed my mom outside the shop, and the 2 of them argued on camera. Maybe because they had already caught her on a hidden camera, she felt the need to double down. She had to think people would side with her for some reason. She was irate. My mom just kept feeding her the rope to hang herself with, and the shop owner tied the whole thing into a neatly wrapped bow for the reporter. Just a spectacular failure on her part. It's hard to imagine how it could have gone worse. Sure, it is just a local news report from the 90s. For my mom, it was her hero moment. She knew she was right, and she knew this person had to be stopped, and she did it all the way, just like everything she ever did. In the report, they say that they went back, and the place was already closed. Within a month, it was completely out of business. The reporter won an award for the piece, and the righteous indignation was satiated for the time being. My mom recorded the airing of the report on a VHS tape, and every chance she got, she would parade it around to show people her crowning achievement. She would tell the whole story, and we'd all watch the tape until it was lost to time and became legend. Through some effort, I have found the video, and I know that she would want everyone to see it. The next one is an entitled people story. So, I'm a restaurant owner and of course deal with loads of bullcrap every day. But this one time was just extra special, super crazy kind of bullcrap. We bought a restaurant in 2008. Lots of crap comes with that kind of purchase. Of course, the equipment and inventory, but also existing customers, both good and bad. In many circumstances, the purchaser also inherits the issue of outstanding gift cards. Now, we did not receive any money or discount from the business purchase to cover the cash liability of the gift cards. We decided it would be best to honor the old cards for a period of 1 year, starting the date we took over all operations. We figured it would be seen as a good move that our guests would certainly appreciate. We put signs on the doors, posted on our social media platforms, which were crap back then. We even did a trade out with a couple local publications that our demographics relied on at the time. We had an upper crust clientele, lots of affluent people. To help with separating the sales of the old cards, we made new ones with the new logo and everything. It was very obvious when someone was using one of the old cards. Now remember, we just comped all those sales, no income whatsoever. A year comes rolling around. We again announced that the old cards would be useless come said date, whatever date it was, and that anyone with one needed to use it up ASAP. The final day comes and the signs are taken off the doors. The very next day we had a table of 6 with one guy paying for the whole table. And wouldn't you know it, he wanted to use one of the old cards. I explained the situation to him and that it would be necessary to use another form of payment. That didn't go over well. He starts arguing with me, telling me that the right thing to do would be to accept his old-ass gift card, which at this point was over a year old, most likely a couple years old. We go back and forth and round and round. After a couple minutes, he says, "Well, you know, I'm a doctor and you should try to save face with me." Now, I had been very nice up to this point. I told him that Ho's profession has nothing to do with it, yada yada yada. He keeps cutting me off trying to convince Six that doctors were the best customers. They absolutely are not, some of the worst actually, and we should honor the card for him because of such. I shrugged my shoulders and told him, well, if y'all leave right now, I'll cut your bill in half just to get you out of my restaurant. He was shocked at my chosen words, as anyone would be, I guess, but he accepted my offer and they left. Never to be seen again, thankfully. So many doctors have that God complex and that holier-than-thou attitude. I grew up in a medical family. My dad was a very well-known OBGYN with a huge practice. His wife, my stepmother, was a nurse practitioner and worked in his office and did quite well. I will say that there were times that Dad would act in similar fashion, until I got into restaurant ownership. He slowly began to understand the amount of crap we deal with and that customers can really suck sometimes, and he became a better diner. Had more patience with the staff, etc., and tipped more. He wasn't a bad tipper before, he just upped his typical percentage. He definitely changed his tune after spending 5 years in prison. Whole other story, nurses can't be trusted. He came out more humble and things like that. So it's not like this guy was ever going to impress me with his ducking, I'm a doctor. Nonsense. Side story. Well after, like over 2 years after the time period for using the old cards, a sweet older lady came in with her granddaughter, treating her to a birthday dinner at a fancy fine dining restaurant. Time goes to pay the bill, and here comes that old gift card. Our server explained the deal, and all emotion just left that woman's face, and she became quite sad. Turns out she had received the gift card the previous week from her boss as a work gift, anniversary or something. So this guy, whoever her boss was, had just dug around in his desk or wherever to find a last-minute gift for her. So, obviously, this makes him look like a crap heel, especially when she really realized that the card was so old there was no way he had just swung by to get her the gift card in the days before. It was sad. We ended up comping 25% of her bill, I think. In neither situation were we obligated to give any sort of discount or to accept the gift cards. By the time the ordeal with the lady, we couldn't even look up the card to see how much was still on it. But he sure as duck wasn't obligated to inform me of his chosen profession and that he was quite obviously better than me. Better than my establishment. Better than everyone. Such a dick. Remember, kids, if you have a gift card, use it before you can't. Anyway,